The rain drummed softly against the glass of the airport lounge as an elderly woman stood quietly by the window, her weathered hands gripping a small cloth bag. Her clothes were simple. A faded green shawl, a long cotton skirt that brushed the floor, and shoes that had clearly seen many harvest seasons. Her name was Mary Thompson, a 67-year-old farmer from the small town of Willow Creek. The people around her barely noticed her. Just another old woman, probably lost or confused in an airport far too modern and polished for someone like her. But Mary wasn't lost. She was waiting for a flight, a first-class ticket to New York City. Her eyes, soft but sharp, scanned the terminal board. Flight 102, Gate B12, on time. She smiled faintly. Her grandson had booked it for her. It was the first time she'd ever flown first class. Emotional and cinematic, she had no idea that within the next hour, this simple flight would turn into a lesson for the entire plane. A moment that would silence arrogance, melt pride, and remind the world that kindness and humility carry a worth beyond money or status. Before we dive deeper, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Universe, where we bring you true stories that restore faith in humanity and remind you of the power of compassion. Mary adjusted her shawl, gripping her boarding pass. People glanced at her as she approached the priority boarding lane. Her seat read 1A, first class. The attendant at the counter frowned slightly, her polite smile faltering. "Ma'am," the attendant said gently, "this is for first-class passengers only." Mary nodded, her voice soft but confident. "Yes, dear, that's me. Seat 1A. The attendant blinked, clearly doubting. She scanned the ticket. Her brows lifted. The system confirmed it. Still, her tone held hesitation. "All right, ma'am, please, follow me." Behind her, a few business travelers and wealthy passengers exchanged amused looks. One of them, a sharply dressed woman in her early 40s with diamond earrings and a designer handbag, whispered loudly to her companion, "First class isn't for everyone. Some people just don't fit the environment." Mary heard her, but said nothing. As she walked down the jet bridge, memories of the wheat fields swayed in her mind. Every wrinkle on her hand told a story. Years of sowing seeds, losing crops to drought, and rebuilding again. Her farm had fed hundreds, yet she never thought herself important. Just a woman doing her duty to the earth. She found her seat, spacious, lined with white leather. The stewardess smiled uncertainly. "Can I help you with your bag, ma'am?" "Oh, thank you, dear," Mary said kindly, placing her small cloth bag under the seat. When the other first-class passengers entered, murmurs began again. The woman with the diamond earrings, Clara Weston, a powerful CEO, took the seat beside Mary. Clara looked her over, from her plain shawl to her cracked hands, and sighed audibly. "I think there's been a mistake," she said coldly. "This section is reserved." Mary turned her head gently. "I believe we're both in the right place, dear." Clara rolled her eyes. "You believe? That's not how first class works. It's not a charity ride." The stewardess intervened quickly. "Ma'am, her ticket is valid." Clara scoffed. "Then whoever runs this airline clearly doesn't care about their brand." The tension in the cabin thickened. Mary said nothing, her gentle smile never fading. She simply looked out the window as the plane took off, her heart calm, though the whispers continued. When lunch was served, the difference in treatment became painfully clear. The attendants hesitated to offer Mary champagne, giving her water instead. Clara laughed quietly. She probably wouldn't know what to do with it anyway. Mary only smiled and whispered, "You might be surprised, dear. Life teaches you many things, if you listen." Clara smirked, looking away. But as the flight progressed, turbulence hit, sudden and strong. Gasps filled the cabin as the plane shook violently. A wine glass shattered, spilling red across Clara's white dress. Panic set in. Passengers clutched their armrests, some crying. But Mary stayed calm. Her hands moved instinctively, comforting the flight attendant who looked terrified. "It's all right, child," she said softly. "Breathe. You'll guide them better if you're calm." Her words, so simple, carried authority. The crew regained composure, attending to everyone. When the turbulence passed, Clara looked at Mary in surprise. "How were you so calm?" she asked quietly. Mary smiled. "When you've watched your crops drown in rain one year and burn in sun the next, you learn to make peace with what's beyond your control." For the first time, Clara didn't know how to respond. When the plane landed in New York, passengers began to disembark. Clara was still uneasy. Something about this old woman unsettled her, yet inspired her. As they entered the arrival gate, Mary's phone rang. "Yes, tell them I'll be there in 10 minutes, she said calmly, before turning to Clara. "It was nice flying with you, dear." Clara nodded awkwardly. "Yes, safe travels." Mary smiled and began walking toward the VIP exit. Clara raised a brow, the VIP exit. Moments later, a uniformed chauffeur approached. "Mrs. Thompson, your car is ready. The pilot is waiting for your flight plan." Clara froze. Pellet. Outside, a sleek white private jet gleamed on the tarmac. A Gulfstream G650 with Thompson Farms emblazoned on the tail. Ground crew stood by, respectful. The same flight attendants and passengers who had doubted her stood in silence, staring. Mary turned to the group, her kind smile unwavering. "Oh, I didn't mention, I own a small farm. We export organic produce worldwide. The company flies me out once a month to visit our distributors." Clara's face turned pale. "Wait, Thompson Farms, the supplier for Weston Foods." Mary nodded gently. "That's right. I believe your company is one of our biggest buyers." The realization hit Clara like a storm. The woman she had mocked, the one she thought beneath her, was not just wealthy but humble, grounded, and powerful beyond measure. The attendants stood frozen, embarrassed. Mary turned to them softly. "Never judge people by their clothes, dear. You never know what story their hands have written." Then she walked gracefully toward her jet. The engines hummed to life as the sunlight caught her shawl, fluttering in the breeze, the very symbol of humility wrapped around power. As the jet took off, Clara stood still, reflecting. She realized the lesson that no corporate meeting or business degree had ever taught her. That true class is measured not by wealth or titles, but by grace, kindness, and humility. The next week, Clara sent a handwritten letter to Thompson Farms, thanking Mary for the lesson she didn't know she needed. And in her next board meeting, she began with a quote she'd never forget.